In this lesson, we're going to discuss how to solve a quadratic by completing the square with complex numbers. In Unit 1, you learned how to complete the square. The previous assignment, you discussed some complex numbers, and now we're going to put those skills together. First thing I want to review with you is how to solve by completing the square. Here's the poster. If you need it, have it opened up near you on your computer if you need to remember how to do the steps. The main thing we need to take away and remember is this b divided by 2 to the second power. That's what we're going to add to both sides. That's how we complete the square. So keep that poster handy when we go through examples. The next thing let's review is a complex number. There's a real part and an imaginary part in complex numbers. So for example, 3 plus 4i, the 3 is real, the 4 would be our imaginary part. Let's find the zeros of this function by completing the square. The very first step is to remove any constants to the right side if necessary. Right now I see plus 5 on the left side. We need to move it over to the right. So I'm going to start this process by subtracting 5 on both sides. Now remember, we need to leave space for what we're going to add on both sides. So to complete the square, I'm going to change colors here, we need to take -2 divided by 2 and square it. That is going to give us 1. So we are going to add 1 to both sides of the equation. Okay, what we do to one side, we have to do to the other. Step 3 involves factoring. Okay, we're going to factor the left side here. X squared minus 2x plus 1. That's going to be x minus 1 times x minus 1. -1 times -1 is positive 1. You add those together, you get -2. We're going to set that equal to -5 plus 1 leaves us with -4. Now we can put our x minus 1's together and square them. Set it equal to -4. Okay. To continue to solve, we got to get rid of that power of 2. We're going to do that by taking the square root of both sides. So we have x minus 1, because those cancel, equals, remember this is an equal sign, so we need plus or minus, and we're going to take the square root, remember our imaginary number, so I'm going to separate this out as the square root of 4 times the square root of -1. Okay, so x minus 1 equals plus or minus 2. Square root of 4 is 2. The square root of -1 becomes I. We're not done yet. We're not out of the water yet. Our last step is to add 1 to both sides. I'm going to move up over here. So we're going to get x equals, because of our commutative property, I can put the positive 1 out front and separate it with plus or minus 2i. So there are 2 answers here. You are free to leave your answer in this form, or if you want to write them all out, you can. So another way to write out these answers would be x equals 1 plus 2i. That's one answer. Or x equals 1 minus 2i. If you want to write it out like that, it's perfectly fine. If you want to keep it written together in this form, you might do so as well. Let's try one more example here. We have x squared plus 10x plus 35 equals 0. I'm going to solve this by completing the square. Let's do this in a different color, let's go blue. Okay, first things first, if we need to move our constants over if necessary. So I'm going to subtract 35 on both sides. And I'm left with x squared plus 10x. I'm going to leave space equals negative 35. Now, I need to take half of b. b is 10. Cut it in half, square it, and we would get 25. So I'm going to add 25 to both sides. Okay. On the left side here, I'm going to factor. So two numbers I multiply to get 25 and add to get 10 are 5 and 5. So we get x plus 5 times x plus 5 equals negative 35 plus 25 is negative 10. Okay. Put those terms together as x plus 5 to the second power equals negative 10. We need to square root both sides. Square root both sides. We get x plus 5 equals, again it's an equal sign, and when we take the square root, we always need to have this plus or minus. We're going to have the square root of 10 times the square root of negative 1. I'm going to factor out that negative 1 because we can't take the square root of negative 10 by itself. We need to turn it into an imaginary number. So we have x plus 5 equals plus or minus the square root of 10 times I. I can't simplify the square root of 10 any further. Again, I'm going to move over to the left side of the screen here. We are going to subtract 5 on both sides. And here's one way to write my final answer. Because of our commutative property, I can put negative 5 out front, plus or minus the square root of 10 I. And make sure that I is outside that square root symbol. Again, if you want to write this two ways, you may do so. So the two answers that are sitting there are x equals negative 5 plus 10i and x equals negative 5 minus 10i.